Now we will be talking about the Circle of Willis. To begin, the vertebral arteries, shown here and here, that move through the transverse foramens of the cervical vertebrae. It's going to come up through foramen magnum, which is this big opening here. There is a branch, there's an artery that is coming off of these vertebral arteries called the posterior inferior cerebellar artery, but is not shown on this model. These arteries would be coming off here and here, okay? As we move up, those vertebral arteries are going to combine into the basilar artery, shown here. The first branch off of the basilar artery is going to be the anterior inferior cerebellar artery, shown here and here. All of these arteries are paired as they are branching off. The next branch coming off of the basilar artery, shown here and here, is going to be the superior cerebellar artery. So the three branches that we've talked about so far have all been branches feeding the cerebellum. Next, when we get to the top of the basilar artery, we have now moved into the cerebral, to the arteries feeding the cerebral area of the brain. Shown here and here is the posterior cerebral artery. Next, we are going to have the posterior communicating artery, shown here and here. The posterior communicating artery is how blood gets from the posterior cerebral artery area to the middle cerebral artery, shown here and here. Coming up and continuing on as the middle cerebral artery, you're going to have the internal carotid artery, shown here and here. That internal carotid artery is coming up through the carotid canal. Another branch that is coming off right at this junction is going to be the ophthalmic artery, which is going to be this small artery right here and here. It's actually coming off of the internal carotid artery. That ophthalmic artery is going to go through the optic canal along with the optic nerve, shown here in yellow. Next, we are going to have two structures that are not really shown here, but they're going to be extending forward like this. These are going to be the anterior cerebral arteries. Right in between the anterior cerebral arteries, you've got the anterior communicating artery. It's just this little bridge between these two structures that are extending towards the front of the skull. A final artery that you can see on this model is this one here, and then over here. This is the middle meningeal artery that is coming through foramen spinosum. Some of the nerves that you can see on this model with the Circle of Willis, the first one, shown here and here, is going to be the olfactory nerve that's coming through the cribriform plate. This structure in the center that's poking up, this is the crista galli. This yellow structure here is going to be the optic nerve that's running through the optic canal. If I pull this to the side, shown here, coming through foramen rotundum, is going to be the maxillary branch of the trigeminal nerve. Shown down here, coming through the jugular foramen, you're going to have the glossopharyngeal nerve, the vagus nerve, and the accessory nerve.